Episode 5 of Tano Cast.
Bro,
Oh man, we have a
what
lot.
what an episode. Unfortunately, the more I think about it, I don't know if I absolutely loved it
Mm,
or not. I don't want to say I hate, but just
mhm.
like, did I love it or not?
So, I loved it.
Okay.
Easily, maybe my favorite piece of Star Wars content that's ever been made.
Dang, that's
Um,
saying a lot, dude.
first 10 of the 10 of the show. Um,
It wasn't a 10
but
out of 10 last week. What do we give last week's?
I think I was nine something. I don't know.
Really?
Somebody can correct me, but I don't think I was a 10 last week. Maybe I was. I don't know. But no, the only complaint that I had about this week's episode, and this is such a minuscule thing, is you and I saw the news that this episode was being aired in theaters
Yeah.
too late. Like tickets were already gone, like we couldn't make it work. But watching this episode in a theater with other Star Wars fans and them reacting the way that I was reacting here in my hotel room, I think that's the only thing that would have turned this into, dare I say, 20 out of 10. Like,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll get into it. Let's jump straight into it because I feel like we're going to be talking about this for a long time. But
yes.
um, beginning of the episode, we got your boy Carson.
Hmm.
Immediately Hera's like, "Hey Carson," and I'm like, "Oh, there's Brian's boy." And he
Oh,
had
yeah.
quite an appearance in this episode. He was in there quite a bit.
He
Are you happy to
was.
see that?
I was. Yeah. I'm always down for some Carson.
After you told me that he's like a super Star Wars fan, like I was like, this is so cool. It's got to be so freaking cool to him, like to see
Oh, yeah.
himself on these shows and like flying an X-wing, like wearing especially like the older like get up for
Yeah.
the resistance, like
He's
or
legit living our dream,
yeah, like
right?
I
If
would love to do
5
that.
years down the road, someone from Disney, wink, wink, comes along and they're like, hey, Scruffy Nerf Herder podcast, you guys have done a really good job helping us build our brand.
Yeah.
Do you want to be some X-Wing pilots?
Did you just say that we've done a good job building Star Wars brand?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, if that's what it comes down to, I'm all for it. But yeah,
No, I'm
no.
gonna be like, I am a B-wing pilot only. I only fly B-wings. This
Give me
guy over
a.
here, this guy, he's a snow speeder. He only rides snow speeders.
That's
So
it. Give me a Y wing. Give me a Y wing.
yeah,
Um.
no, the episode starts off. I was very shocked the way they kind of started off. To be honest with you, so they did the recap and they showed Ahsoka and Anakin in
Right.
the world between worlds. So we assume that's what it was, but like then it just goes quiet, and I'm like, are they just gonna go straight into it? Like, are they gonna jump straight into it? And then they
Didn't.
tease you. They tease you. They go
Yeah.
to Hera and Carson looking for Ahsoka and Sabine, and
Immediately, I thought like, let's get to the Ahsoka and Anakin part, because it's gonna be something where it's not until halfway through the episode. It takes forever to get there, but
yeah.
in this quick little scene where they were kind of just showcasing, Hera walking around that area trying to look for Sabine and for Ahsoka, I thought was really cool, and it kind of made me realize, we saw Hu Yang kind of like, I don't want to say mourning, but he was just like, they didn't listen. I told them stick together. They never listen. You just tell he was frustrated, but it was crazy to me that there was so much emotion behind essentially a droid in that scene. And then I
Well,
really started thinking about it, and I'm like, Star Wars really does give a lot of emotions to their droids. Like even R2, like
mhm.
when he screams or when he's like doing something or makes his little noises where like C3PO's talking smack to him, like he has personality, and it's like that's
Yeah.
something that I think I admire a lot about what Star Wars has done is anytime you see droids or AI, a lot of times it's like one or the other. They have no personality whatsoever, or they have way too much. Like
Oh yeah.
it's almost like a good mix of being a droid and having
Yeah, and it
AI.
kind of makes you create, now that I'm thinking about it, like attachment and feeling to them, right?
Yeah.
Because like even with Chopper, like having seen him in Rebels and the expansion and like knowing his backstory and stuff like that, there's a scene where in this episode, Hera tells Jason to stick with Chopper, And I was just like, Chopper's probably like, "What am I, a babysitter? Like, when did I like? What is going on here? Like,
Yeah, no, that's true. But I don't know. Like you said, it makes you feel for them. I felt for Hu
yeah,
Yang because you could tell he was just like, I tell them all the time, they don't listen to me. Like, stick together, you're better together. So,
yeah."
but then right from there, man, right from there,
The reunion we've all been waiting for. Ever since the Ahsoka series got announced and Rosario Dawson tweeted Hayden Christensen saying, "See you in the sky, Sky Guy," and then quickly deleted the tweet because she wasn't supposed to announce that.
oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Dang, I got chills. I
Uh
got chills from hearing Sky Guy. I don't know why.
yeah, it's dude, Anakin and Snips are reunited, but then we get something that I definitely was not expecting this episode. There's a lot of things I wasn't expecting this episode, but we get an Anakin versus Ahsoka lightsaber battle.
So I have something to say about that because as they were kind of like talking, I was still trying to be like, what is this? Is
Mhm.
this that world between worlds? Is this Force Ghost Anakin? Is this something trying to impersonate Anakin? And it's really like a evil spirit or something. Like I was really trying to figure out what the heck this was. And trying to get an understanding of like, is this truly Anakin before he turns into Vader? Is this after he's been Vader already and now he's back to the light side? Like, I was trying to figure out what Anakin this was. And when he's like, I'm here to finish your training. And I was like, okay. And so then I
Mhm.
kind of got like excited and she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're never too old to learn. So that right there made me almost think like maybe it's Force Ghost Anakin. Maybe it's after he was Darth Vader. So like him kind of realizing I could become the light again because Luke kind of showed me that. So that's kind of what
Yeah.
I got out of it. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I didn't really think about that much because I think I was just so
Just
overwhelmed with
excited.
everything that was happening.
Lightsaber fight.
And I was like, I don't need an explanation. Like I'm just like, holy crap, this is happening. Especially like the way it progresses. But there is something that I wrote, and we'll dive into it a little later. But I think it hits what you're talking about because it is something I picked up in the episode of like a transformation. Um, that I definitely do think that like I don't know. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not sure if this was the world between worlds. Like I'm sure people will be like,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously it was, but like it just didn't. I don't know. It was one of those like it was all a dream.
That's what it
It was.
seemed like. That's the whole thing seemed like. And that's why I think, like I said, I'm kind of frustrated because I feel like the scene
Mhm.
gave me more questions than answers. Like I'm
Yeah.
even now, I'm like, why? Why was that
Right.
scene there? What was its purpose?
So let's just dive because it fits here. So let's talk about one of the things that I took away from it was that like the entire lead up to this episode, Ahsoka has been wearing gray, right? She falls off the cliff. She
Okay.
has this experience with Anakin, and then immediately afterwards, she's wearing white. So I was like, did we just see a Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White fucking transformation where
Okay.
she died just like Gandalf did with the Balrog, came back reborn as this new, highly intelligent, reliving Ahsoka who's gone to the afterlife and come back, and that's why she's wearing white.
I didn't
I
even
don't
catch
know.
that.
That was my because like she was wearing like the color difference was so massive between like dark gray and then she's wearing almost like pure white. And it's like if she did die and then come back to the light or come back to life after being with Anakin, then yeah, maybe it was a force ghost that she got to experience on that end and she met Anakin in the afterlife, but then came back to life, and that's why she is now wearing white clothes. I don't know.
So right before their fight, he did say, "You need to make a choice. Do you want to live or die?" And then he just pulls out the lightsaber, and she's like, "I'm not going to fight you." And then he says, "I've heard that before," and that was something I wasn't fully understanding. Was again, I haven't finished Clone Wars and I haven't seen Rebels, so I know that there's a fight between them, but he's Darth Vader at the time. Does she say, I'm not going to fight you at that time? Or she just wasn't sure if that was Anakin at the time? Like, has she said that? Or was he referring to like Obi-Wan saying, I will not fight you?
I think she does say it to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
because he had made a mention. He's like, I've heard that before, and I was just like, what is he referring to? Is he referring to
Oh
her?
god, dude. This is like one of those episodes. Like this is the perfect example of the fact that like I've got a little bit of Rebels and all the Clone Wars,
Uh huh.
and you got a little bit of Clone Wars, but like this episode, as a fan of Clone Wars, for me, was the single greatest piece of Star Wars content ever made. Like,
So
oh
yeah, I mean that's just something I was questioning. I was like, I thought maybe you'd be able to quickly answer that, but if you're not
yeah,
100%
no,
sure, but you noticed what color was his lightsaber?
it was blue.
It was blue, but I felt like it sounded like Vader's
Mm,
because it came out, and then when he was like, it just had a very menacing tone to it, and I'm like, I never remember his lightsaber sounding like that unless he was Vader. So I loved like the constant quick transitions throughout the entire episode or scene where it was like
yeah,
him being Anakin, him being Vader, and I was just like, oh, this is so freaking cool. Like I loved it every time.
yeah. What I thought they did really well was like weaving the story in between like what's going on with Hera and Jason and Hu Yang and Carson, and then with like Anakin and Ahsoka. And like there was a really cool moment where like Jason hears the lightsaber battle because clearly he's a Jedi as well or a force sensitive individual. I learned this week we're not allowed to call people Jedis. That they're unless you go through the proper
Oh.
trials, you're not a Jedi. So thanks, internet. But yeah, so yeah, he was able to hear Ahsoka's lightsaber fight in the waves, and I was like, dude, that's such a cool thing. But then the other awesome part, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. They said the name Organa.
Yeah. Carson straight up was like Senator Organa, and I was like, oh snap! I even wrote that
Mhm.
down. I was like, he
Yeah,
mentioned
mommy's
Senator
calling.
Organa. What? So yeah, this is the first time you've seen Jason because he wasn't in Rebels, right? This was the
No, I
first
did
time.
learn that he is in Rebels.
Oh, he is okay.
I think he's in the final season, which I haven't got to yet.
So because his father was Kanan,
Hmm.
he's force sensitive.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about Hera? Because Jason was telling her, listen to the lightsabers. And she's like,
Ooh,
what do you mean? You're only hearing waves. And then it's almost like she could hear them too. So I was
that's a
like,
good point.
that was a question for you. Is she also force sensitive, or that wasn't the case in Rebels?
Well, I think the thing we're learning on this show is that the Force is in everyone, right?
I was going to say, because she, she had the force in her at some point. Imagine if that's how it transfers. Hey, what a great pickup line, though. Hey, girl, you want the force? You want to be force sensitive?
Yo, you want the Force to inside you?
Oh my gosh!
You
Yikes!
you gotta think that Jedi's are like picking up chicks at the bars like that, right?
Just left and right.
And he's like, "Hey, you need a drink? Don't worry, I got it."
What if they treat it like
And
an
just,
STD?
I mean, that's kind of what it.
You got force sen. Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that's like kind of weird though. Like, it is something this show has been talking about. Is like everybody's sensitive to the Force. Like the
Right.
Force is around everybody, and it just depends
That's
on like
true.
if you're attuned to it. But like, it's something that I honestly thought was going to be a bigger issue between fans of being like, well, if everybody has the Force, then everybody's a Jedi. Like, it's just I don't, but it isn't
Yeah.
really an issue.
So okay. Yeah. So I was gonna say like because like you said they mentioned that the force is kind of revolves around everything, all life, all that. But I felt like before it was always something where it was more of like an important thing, like, hey, this guy's got a high metachlorian count.
Hmm.
That's why they're force sensitive.
Yeah.
So just can anybody be force sensitive? Like, can
Hey,
Hu Yang pop out there and be like, hey, I'm force sensitive?
I was about to make a very inappropriate joke, but yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what we're getting to is that like everybody is force sensitive at this point. But
Yeah.
I did I pulled out a little bit of whiskey because I wanted to take a drink and toast to Dave Filoni for this next scene that popped up here. We got live action Clone Wars.
I was gonna
Like,
ask you, like that. So first off, the transition when she's like, clearly you don't. There's nothing more to teach me. Take it. Take that drink. She goes, clearly there's nothing more to teach me, and he's like, you clearly haven't learned everything, and he just cuts out the floor from underneath her. You good?
I'm good.
Oh, baloney.
Oh yeah.
So the transition between Ahsoka being a little girl was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
I had to rewind it because I was like, did I miss it? Like, did she land as an adult and all of a sudden she came out of the shadows? But she landed as essentially young Padawan
Hmm.
Ahsoka, and
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved it. Made me almost wish they did like an entire like live action Clone Wars series, but I feel like that would take so long.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it down in my notes that I was like, even if they did shorts where it was like little
Important.
5 minute things, like important moments as like live action, I would, because there's a lot of deleted scenes that have come online that like never got made.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I'm like, hey, you should totally do that. But like this was such an awesome moment because I believe it was the Battle of Ryloth because you had a lot of the Twi'leks joining the battle as well,
Hmm.
and Anakin was wearing his Clone War armor. You had Captain Rex in the background, dual pistols, and I'm just like,
That was
this is
sick.
so awesome. And it
That
was
was
just
sick.
like it was everything like all the nostalgic ships and the drop ships and the walkers, and I was just I guess like what I'm coming to terms with is like how impactful the prequels were when I was a kid and like how much I loved that stuff because seeing the clones and the clone ships and all their armor and like tanks, I'm just like, this is so awesome, like I love this, like.
I loved seeing the ATTs and like
Hmm.
so one question I was going to ask you was you obviously had mentioned like I wish they would redo the prequels with like today's technology. Did this like feed that appetite or does it
I
just
didn't
leave
even
you
think about
wanting
that.
more?
I didn't even think about that,
What?
but
You're the
yes,
one that like
yes.
was like I wish they'd redo the prequels. Like this
Bro,
was it essentially.
bro, let me just tell you, I was watching this episode and I was just jaw on the ground, just brain shut off. You're lucky I took notes because like this was like
Uh,
but yes, to answer your question, I mean, if this is what prequel remakes could look like, then yeah, I'm 100% it. Now, granted, there were some moments that like I was like, oh, you guys are using special effects to hide this and hide the scale of the battle. But
right.
yeah, you could definitely make this look dope. Um, but then the other side of it too, which I get, like, you're not even gonna have any recognition of this. They showed the fucking siege of Mandalore, which is like final season of Clone Wars when Ahsoka has the most badass fight scene where she is like in a ship and she's like jumping from ship to ship in the sky and
Oh
then
wow.
lands on the ground and the ship blows up behind her and it's just like the epic scene. And it's literally that scene where like Maul has taken over the Mandalorians and he's now the leader of the Mandalore, and like that's why you had the dude with like the spike helmets and
Okay, I was
like,
gonna ask that because I was like, are these
yeah.
Mandalorians? Because they look like they have Darth Maul like little horns coming up. So okay,
Yeah, so like,
interesting.
and that's when like Ahsoka has her fight with Maul. And what's
Got it.
dope about it is like before this show came out, there was a photo of Darth Maul facing off with Ahsoka in
Hmm.
like a desert scene. And I was like, are they gonna give us this? Like, are they gonna give us
Ooh.
Ahsoka versus Maul? But didn't happen. But still, I mean, this whole, we're just gonna call it World Between Worlds, like segment of jumping between the lightsaber battle on Rainbow Road and then falling down into the Battle of Ryloth and then going to the Siege of Mandalore. And then when Ahsoka gets into Anakin's face and kind of pushes back, Anakin fucking goes full Sith and his eyes go red and there's this lightning flash between Vader and Anakin, and it's just like it's like it's perfection, man. Like that's literally the only way to put it. Is just perfect Star Wars.
It was so good. Like it's like him popping out with the red lightsaber all of a sudden because he's like wrong answer, and so then they start this fight, and he's got the Sith eyes, and like he's just you could tell his fighting style is just so much more aggressive, which was so cool. And one small detail that I thought was just super sick was Anakin's haircut. And I know that's the dumbest thing to talk about, but in Attack of the Clones, he had like the super short hair with like the little rat tail.
Little ponytail, yeah.
Yeah. And then in Revenge of the Sith, he had long hair. And
Hmm.
so in Clone Wars, they had him have this hairstyle that was kind of a mix, and he had that. in this live action sequence. And I was like, I thought that was just so cool. It's like such a small detail that I was like, dang, that's so sick. And then it kind of shifted again, like even later on when that battle of Mandalore, you said he had longer hair like he did in Revenge of the
Hmm.
Sith. So
Yeah, and there was that really cool moment where he was like, "I don't remember this battle," and it was like,
mhm.
"Well, duh, you weren't there. You were
Yeah.
off starting Order
So
66. Like,
I don't remember this because I was evil.
I
Do
was
you,
slaying younglings."
there it is. So do you feel like he kind of tailored his personality more to the Clone Wars Anakin?
Yeah, I feel
Because it
like they
seemed
did.
like that. Is he seemed different?
Yeah, and I think it's similar to like what you hear about when like Ewan McGregor talks about the new Kenobi series and how he did it more like Alec McGuinness, where he's
Okay,
like
yeah,
it needs to be a blend of Kenobi prequels and what we get in the original trilogy. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think he was like, we've got to blend or bridge the two characters here.
yeah. I thought it was really good because I know a lot of people speak highly of Anakin's character in Clone Wars, and so to kind of see that in live action and seeing
Hmm.
our Anakin do that, I thought was really cool too. That not only was it the hairstyle, but the personality that he kind of brought from Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'm so bummed, man. This past weekend in Austin, we had a little like Comic Con convention going on. Like it
Okay,
wasn't like a big one, but it was like a little small one. And Ashley, who is the voice of Ahsoka, and then I don't know the gentleman's name who voices Anakin, but also the actor who voices Obi-Wan, were all doing a session where you could get like all a photo with all three of them. And I
dang,
was like, oh, that'd be so dope just to go meet those guys because like that show is so I'm so excited to jump back into that show with you, man. Like,
I am
um,
too.
yeah.
Especially after seeing this, like it made me wish I had already seen it because I feel like all this stuff would be so much more impactful. Like coming as somebody who hasn't finished Clone Wars and really only seen like the first season, like all of this stuff is pretty damn impactful to me just from being a Star Wars fan and knowing what I know. But I can't imagine like how it must feel, like the emotions and everything of seeing this scene. But at the same time, the scene pisses me off because I don't know what it's for. What was the point of this scene? Like maybe, like you said, maybe it was this rebirth of Ahsoka, but it's
Yep.
like, what the hell was this? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, we get to the point where Anakin does this awesome like force kick at
Mhm.
her, and then she like falls down, and then we get the transition to him coming out of the smoke and it like flashing between Vader and himself, which I freaking loved. And then eventually get to a point where Ahsoka defeats Anakin, and she says, "I choose to live." Tosses
Mhm.
his saber, and then he kind of like closes his eyes, and he's kind of back to Anakin, and then he just says, "All right, maybe you will." What does he say? Maybe you will live,
Mhm.
or something like that. Maybe you'll be okay. I can't remember. There's hope for you yet. That's what he says. There's hope for
Yeah.
you yet. And then that's it. And then now all of a sudden she's like floating in the ocean again, and like, or I mean, the water kind of rises, but like,
So that I wrote a note. I did write a note about this. That water rising. Do you think that was CGI?
oh, I don't know.
Because like the way that the water was going over her face, it just looked very sus. I was just like,
Well, probably. I'm sure it's
mm.
probably easier to do than actually like somehow weigh her down with all that makeup and everything on.
Yeah, and then like the makeup's running. Yeah,
So
but
it
it was just
probably
funny.
was.
I wrote that. I was like, oh look, CGI. But no, I mean,
I just,
th-
for me, it's like, yes, that scene was so awesome. I really, truly loved it, but I don't know what it was for. I was
I
so
think
excited. Gosh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I really do think like even though we're breaking it down now, I do think it's a rebirth because the
Okay.
Ahsoka we get after this whole thing, I think is different than the Ahsoka we get from like even the beginning. You know, like
That's
I
true.
feel like there was a confidence and there was a reconnection to the Force and like a full on understanding of what needed to happen. So I
Okay.
really do think Ahsoka got that Gandalf moment where she died, went through a journey in the afterlife, came back to life, and now she's like kind of like an all knowing Jedi. What interests me is like when we see Ahsoka talking to like Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian,
Hmm.
is that pre Ahsoka show or is that post Ahsoka show? It has
Ooh.
to be pre, right? Because she knows who Grogu is. She knows she sees Morgan. She has the fight with Morgan. All that stuff happens
I
before
have to
the
look this
Ahsoka
up
show, right?
because I think I've heard that it is after.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Bro, that
Okay,
got me.
so
Oh, okay.
sorry, it says right here the events of Ahsoka and The Mandalorian season 3 run concurrently with Ahsoka's absence from the effort to reclaim Mandalore explained. So the reason why she wasn't there to help them reclaim Mandalore is because she's on this whole journey right here.
Mm,
So
makes sense. So it's after all that. Okay. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like it's interesting to see her like she's met Luke by now,
yeah,
right? And like so it's like it's just interesting like to see all this. But I was gonna say they got me with Chopper again this week because
what do you
like
mean?
Chopper says something along the line. "Uh-uh."
Yeah,
I'm just like,
when Carson's like the whole fleet's on his way, and like, what do you
yeah.
mean? I'm not here to help out. And so then Chopper's like, uh oh. I thought that was
Yeah,
great.
bro. Did you know that Ahsoka didn't have ears?
Bro, that's literally what I thought when she was like laying down and she got up, and I was like, why does she look so weird? And I was just so focused on like the forehead and like I got to
Uh
the ears, and I'm like, how does she hear? How does
huh.
she hear anything?
I
That's
don't
all
know.
I kept
Somebody in the
thinking of.
comment section probably is going to tell us. I have no idea how Ahsoka
She
hears
hears
anything.
from her feet.
Yeah, or it's like maybe it's like in her tendrils
Maybe the
that
back of them,
or they
the bottom,
reverberate sound. And
like a snake or something.
but there's also like I'll zoom in on it if I can get a clip of it. There was like a weird like zigzag here, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe that was her ear, but it's just I don't know. It was weird seeing her without her headpiece.
So if you notice it when the next scene, she had her headpiece back on, and I
I
was like,
did.
okay, that looks normal. And I was like, no wonder I was like so weirded out by seeing like her forehead to the makeup line
The other
connection.
interesting thing too is like I've seen a lot of people talk about how her headpiece looks fake. Like they're like it looks very rubbery. For some reason, when the young Ahsoka had it in like the flashbacks, I was
Natural.
like, that looked more natural
Yeah.
than Rosario Dawson's. I don't know what
Yeah.
it was.
I think because of how big it is when
Mm,
she's an adult, that's the only thing I could think of. I feel like they did a better job of it now than they did in the Mandalorian show, because when I would see her in the Mandalorian show, I was like, that looks weird. Like that
yeah,
just like you could see it kind of folding and bending. Now it does look a little more rubbery, which I think is, if you think about it, if you had a piece of like skin, I'm assuming that's what that is. Like
yeah,
that's how it would kind of react, is kind of like rubber. Like it would kind of move. Like when she turns, it kind of moves.
yeah. And then as you get older, they just get floppier and droopier, and they just
Can I just say, we got a lot of Hera walking away in this episode, and I could watch her walk away all
dude.
day long.
With all due respect to Ewan McGregor's wife, but like, oh my god, dude! Like at
Just,
this point, at first I was like, oh, it's funny, like people are making you think, but now it's like
I just, all I
that's
look
all I
at, I
notice.
feel like a pervert.
I'm like, give her an Oscar just for that. Like, I just literally, and
Oh my
it's so
gosh.
distracting. Like a scene will be happening, and if there was like, there's
Distracting.
literally there's eye trackers that you can get on your
Oh yeah,
computer. I should
I
install that
I'd be in
while
trouble.
watching, and it would just be like, boom, right
Yeah,
there, just 100%.
I'd be
No,
in
no
trouble.
denying.
But hey,
Space mommy.
space mommy. I mean, well done, well done. Some of it I feel like is purposeful though. Like you don't need to have her walking away that often. Like,
But I gotta say, like, if I was gonna hook up with an alien, yeah, what are you gonna do with like one of the weird blue
I
elephant
can't.
piano player at Jabba's
No,
palace? No,
no,
space
no.
mommy, space mommy.
Well, with that, the next scene here we have,
We just lost our X-wing cameos right there.
yeah, there it is. Sorry, apologies, but there it
Yeah,
goes.
so Ahsoka comes back and they rescue her from the ocean and they get her on the ship. And then we get this idea where she's like, I got to figure out how to get to him. And there was this really cool Force impressions moment where like she holds her
Mm,
hand out. And in Star Wars Jedi Awakens, no, Jedi Fallen Order, which is the most recent like series they've been pushing out. Um, the character in that Cal Kestis has the exact same tech or like ability where he can walk up to these things in game and like sense what happened in that moment. And I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
so glad they're making that canon because it is kind of a cool detective moment that like you can show up to a thing and you can sense the force around you and know what happened here. But like Ahsoka pretty much did that and found out that Sabine Wren betrayed us all.
Where does it? Yeah, where does that end though?
What do you mean?
I feel like they keep doing that type of stuff and then making it canon. Like we kind of saw that with I think it was the first Mandalorian where Grogu did like force healing
Mm-hmm.
and force healed Din Djarin.
Yeah.
And then the very next movie that comes out is Rise of
Rise of
Skywalker, and we see Rey do it,
mm-hmm.
and she heals. Was it like a alien or something she attacked her?
Mm-hmm. It's like a
But
space worm.
yeah, and it's like they just kind of do these things and then make them canon by throwing them in like a movie or other things. But it's like, do you know how helpful that would have been? Luke could have just found his hand and just like force
Yeah.
healed his hand back
I
on.
mean, it comes back down to like pulling spaceships out of the sky. Vader did it in
Mm,
Kenobi, but like Anakin couldn't have done that in the first three movies. Like, what
right,
happened? You know,
right.
like I get it. I totally understand it, and like, oh yeah, that would have been beneficial in these last couple movies. But I also think like the explanation they give always makes sense to me. That they're just like the Force works differently for other people, right? Some people have certain abilities. Like Anakin can see the future, right? Anakin can see what's going to happen
But
before
that's
things happen,
but
and
that's
no
my
other Jedi
problem.
has that ability. You
That's
know?
my problem. Is like you're telling me Grogu and Rey, two of the probably least experienced Jedi, can do this force healing, but these grand Jedi masters can't.
Yeah.
Like that's where I think it kind of is
But
frustrating.
again, like it comes down to like skills in real life, right? Like I can't throw a football 45 yards, but another
Okay.
human being can do that.
So you're telling me that Rey and Grogu are the Tom Brady and Peyton Manning of
Sure.
the universe, and
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker is just some guy that works at Circle K.
Yeah. Yep. It's a very
I,
fitting role for Luke Skywalker.
I just work at the graveyard shift.
I gotta get to the droids at the Tashi station. My
Yeah.
friends.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like it's hard because it's like they
Yeah.
where does it end? At what point? I mean, it's kind of runs along. This last week where we just got obliterated for talking about Yoda saying, when I'm
Oh yeah.
gone, last of the Jedi, you will be, which you will be. He's referring to Luke, Brian. Just
Yeah,
in
I
case
apparently got that
I
line
got the
wrong.
year wrong. Okay, I got the year wrong. 1970. I know that the first movie came out in 77. Okay,
Yeah.
Turn of the Jedi came out in like 84. Like, okay, all right, internet. Sorry, we apologize, but
Yep. Just
I
two
mean,
dudes talking about Star Wars.
just two dudes. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it makes that line silly now because of how many
hmm
other force
Yeah,
sensitive people there are.
I don't know. With the issues that I have with the Star Wars universe, that ranks very
Real
very
low.
low on my issues. Like
Yeah,
the
that's
fact
fair.
that there's like canon of like, oh, Ahsoka has this ability, but nobody else. Like, oh, yeah. I mean, it's just one of those. I'm like, hey, if Darth Vader and Anakin can see the future, wouldn't that make him impossible to beat in a lightsaber match? Because he's gonna know what your next move is gonna be. Like, it's just,
It's
I don't
true.
know. I don't. There's just things that I just don't question. Because, and we talked about this way back, where it's like it's a show about space wizards and light speed travel. So it's like, how far are we really gonna?
So here's a real life thing I thought about. Okay. So as you know, I took a flight last week. Okay. Several planes. I had to fly like four different planes across the country last week. And every time I was on a plane, one of the times I had a window seat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking out the window, just watching us take off. And all that can run through my head is how the hell does something this big, this heavy, get up in the air and it's just flying in the air?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're up there, it doesn't seem like you're going very fast. Obviously, you're going extremely fast, but it doesn't seem like you're going very fast. and you're just like, how am I not just dropping to the ground right now? And that is exactly how I felt about these Purgles,
Oh yeah.
these giant space whales. I was like, how the hell are these things not just falling to the ground? And then when those three Republic ships came in, I had another thought. Obviously, in like deep space, there's no gravity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those don't weigh anything because it's just more of a mass thing than it is like a weight thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they get like onto a planet, how do they not just come crashing down?
Ooh.
Like once they get close enough, how do they not just come crashing down because of the gravity? Like they're got to be so heavy. I mean, I guess they got these giant rockets on them, but almost like, I don't know,
Well,
maybe
bro,
some.
you know, one in lower atmosphere, they can't tell up from down. Like,
I'm just saying, man. Like
no, I
that
mean
was
it's a yeah, it's interesting because it is like logic is kind of I don't know, and maybe it's just here's the thing though, like talking about like the logic of this and space travel and like how any of this is possible. You and I were at a bachelor party,
mhm,
um, 3-4 weeks ago.
probably a month. Yeah, maybe. Who
Yeah, yeah.
knows? It's been a while.
And we were talking with a bunch of people there who work in the space industry, right? For various government agencies
Hmm.
and private companies. I asked every single one of them with every opportunity that I had, how far away are we from space travel? And every single one of them broke my heart by saying at least 500 years.
Oh, God.
We're never going to see this stuff. Like so like when I
Where
see in
was
Star
I? Why
Wars,
didn't I hear that answer?
oh, I got everybody alone. I was just like, whenever I was alone, I was like, hey, tell me. So like, and like one of them we were talking about was like, it's kind of weird when you see space and like Earth dying in a movie, and they're like, somehow we're gonna get every single person on the planet
Right.
on this spaceship and leave, and it's like we train astronauts for months to be able to live in space. We're just gonna put a bunch of podunk Americans on a spaceship and send them to space. Okay, buddy, like
It's whatever works for the story. It's Hollywood for you.
that's the answer to Star Wars, though.
Okay.
Whatever works for the
That's fair.
story.
That's fair. All
Yeah.
right. Speaking of
Um,
story,
Purgles,
Purgles?
as
Purgil?
as awesome as this episode was,
Uh-huh.
my favorite scene. So Ahsoka's out on the ship talking with the Purgle, like through the Force and
Right.
communicating with the animal, and Hu Yang is just sitting in the cockpit, and then Ahsoka just knocks on the window, and she's like, "Hey!" And I was just like, it was such a simple scene, but I was like, I absolutely love this scene. This is the best thing ever.
I loved how it just basically became Pinocchio. Like, go in there. You mean the
Yeah,
giant whale?
yeah.
Yeah, just go in there. Where are we
And then
going? I don't know.
and then the whales open up on the back end and they reveal hyperdrives.
That's what I'm saying. Is that where hyperdrives came from?
Ooh.
Like,
Maybe
what
they
if
stole
that's why they're like an endangered or like hard to find creature because there was just this slaughtering of these
oh
Purgles for
man.
their hyperdrives?
Oh man.
Isn't that sad?
It's dark.
Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I'd be interested to know if there's any like backstory about who invented the hyperdrive or where it came from. It's got to be out there.
It's like Purgle backwards.
Or it's like you remember that documentary Blackfin
Yeah,
about the people,
Blackfish.
yeah, Blackfish, yeah, and
Yeah.
then Purgle is like that documentary, like
They show that.
oh, yeah. At that point, we're
Oh
like Disney,
no.
you gotta stop making Star Wars movies, just stop.
It was a cool scene. I like seeing those Purgles. What I like too is obviously this story of Star Wars takes place in space, and obviously there's so many amazing things that we see, and it's like even still there's things that happen in the movies and in the shows where people in the universe are like taken back. Like when they saw the Purgles all coming out of them, all of them were like, "Oh gosh, this is crazy!" And I was like, "That's cool." Like imagine
Hmm.
just that's what like I feel like space would be like, where you're going out and seeing new things and you're like, holy cow, like things are always constantly new, like I've never seen that before, like people aren't gonna believe this type stuff. Like
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
I also thought it was weird that Hera didn't join Ahsoka.
I know, if we don't see more Hera, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. If we don't see more of Hera, it's gonna be a problem.
But yeah, that's so let's talk about where we're at now. Ahsoka's going off by herself to fight off what was it, 4 baddies we talked about?
Yep.
3?
But keep in
No.
mind, she's now Ahsoka the White,
Ah,
so she could probably handle it.
her garments match her lightsabers.
Mm-hmm. And like, so she's riding a Purgle. And what's
Hmm.
interesting is like, if you remember the star map, when the first star map came out in the first episode, around the rim there were Purgles showing
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh, this is like the path of the
Purgle
Purgles.
territory.
Exactly. So like,
Purgill-tory.
it's kind of taking that was a good play on words there. That's a really good one. I'm very jealous I didn't come up with that one.
Thank
That'll
you.
be the
Thank
name
you.
of next week's episode, Purgatory.
Purgatory.
Purgatory. Yeah.
Purgatory.
But yeah, so she's riding these Purgles there, and she's chasing down Morgan, Balin, Shin. We have to assume Thrawn, and then
Yeah.
we also have to assume Ezra. We don't know if Ezra's a good boy or bad boy.
Gosh, there's three episodes left, man.
You just made me super depressed right now.
Do you think it's going to end with like a reveal of Thrawn and then it's just going to be like a season 2?
I hope so. I want a season 2.
Because I feel like there's a lot left to happen before it ends. And
Or
this was like a 51 minute, like this was a long episode.
yeah, so there's multiple options, right? Obviously, as a fan of what we're seeing right now, I want a season 2 of Ahsoka. Just like I
Yeah.
posted a tweet or an X basically saying like, give me more Star Wars. Like the content we're getting in these last couple weeks, I'm like, dude, this is some of the best Star Wars stuff I've ever seen. But like realistically, it's probably going to go into a movie. Like we're going to get a Mando-verse movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there's one more season of Mando before we get to the movie.
So maybe it'll tie in how they get there, maybe.
Yeah, but even then, we got a strike going on, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be forever. I did find out that the actor who's playing Thrawn, Mads Mikkelsen, dude, he's in one of the coolest video games ever called Death Stranding, and he's the villain in that. Oh man, such a great actor.
Isn't
So
he like a guy from like Star Trek too?
maybe I've never really
Can't
when we
remember.
watched Star Trek together in that theater, that was the first time me
Have you
seeing
seen
Star
any Star
Trek.
Trek? I really haven't seen a lot of Star Trek either, to be honest. So
All I know is the Big Van Vader, the V.
this is a Star Wars podcast. What are we doing? What are we
Matt
doing?
Mikkelsen was in The Secrets of Dumbledore. He was Dumbledore.
Oh,
He was also in a James Bond movie, Doctor Strange. Oh, look at that! He was already in. He was in Rogue One.
interesting.
Huh? But I don't
That's
see.
interesting. That's almost like a Marvel thing where you got like Chris Evans playing Human
Oh, yeah.
Torch and Captain America.
God forbid they meet each other. Yeah. What'd you think of the hyperspace jump? Did it feel a little cheesy?
No.
Okay.
All that was running through my head was, is this how hyperdrives got created? Like, do they slaughter
Mhm.
these poor Purgles?
Yeah. It also makes sense that like when Mando and Grogu were in hyperspace, that they were, or when they were going light speed, that they saw the Purgles in light speed with them. And I was like, oh, that makes
This
sense.
is kind of like opening up a whole thing. Like Purgles just own hyperspace.
Mm-hmm. Get out the way. Beep,
Yeah.
beep. If you see a Purgle, get the hell out of its way. Yeah, I do like the Pinocchio reference because
Right?
very much so. It was
Like
it felt very
Monstro,
Pinocchio.
my boy Monstro.
Yeah.
Good thing Disney's doing it.
I also got to assume that like when Ahsoka and landed the ship inside of the mouth, when they went off into light speed, the ship just went.
Just choke the whale. What if they don't end up where they're supposed to go? Like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
They just end up somewhere else.
Yeah, there was a line that she said though that was like perfect to it, where it was like, and it kind of makes me think she is super attuned to the Force right now. Where he's like, "Well, how about like where are we gonna go?" He goes, "Well, going somewhere is better than going nowhere." And I was like, "Holy smokes!" Like you were very deep with the one lines, right?
Yeah, I guess that just sounds like somebody that's high. Like,
yeah,
I just didn't understand. Like,
where are we going? I don't know, man.
right? Like,
going somewhere is better than
you
going
don't know.
nowhere. Man.
That's how we're ending this episode. I don't know where we're going. I don't know. Like, what was the point of you getting out there and trying to nose rub the whale? Like,
yeah.
Did you get anything from the whale? I don't know. We're just going in its mouth. Why? I don't know. What?
It did seem like a mid-season finale. Like, if the
Yeah.
show was gonna take a break and go
Just
into a
stop
second
there.
season, it did feel like it was a
Ooh.
good, and maybe that's where we are in a story point, because I mentioned last week's episode kind of felt like the end of a moment where I was thinking a lot of the villains were gonna get killed.
Right.
This episode, I was definitely like, okay, this is an end of a chapter, and whatever is gonna happen after this, it's about to go down. Like,
I don't know, man. I'm still confused. I'm still confused with the whole Anakin thing. I just don't understand. Was it a vision? Was it the world between worlds? Was it she died and was reborn? What was that? I just so much excitement for the Anakin thing. Like I said, I just felt like there was more questions. Like nothing was answered for me.
mhm.
Yeah, it might have been this Ahsoka rebirth, but it's like, what was that place? Where was she? Was it the world between worlds? Was she just having a vision? Was it a dream? Was it just all internal in her head? And that was just something she went through and needed to get through in order to be where she's at now. Like, what was that? And I just unfortunately feel like that's not going to be answered.
Well, and if it was like when you die, you relive your moments and you have to choose whether you're going to live or you die. It's kind of
Purgil-tory.
like it's like it yeah.
She was a Purgil-tory, bro.
It makes you wonder, like, does everybody get this? Like, did Anakin have to relive his moments of like everything he did? Because
Oh,
my God,
you
Anakin.
got to think like Obi-Wan would have been okay with it, right? Because he kind of, the way he went out, he was, I'm going to be more help as a Force ghost. And even Yoda, like, all right, I'm done. So
Yeah.
yeah, what if like
Like
that
if
is
you're about if
something
you die too soon, or if you die before your time, like what if it's just like, oh, hey, you have to choose whether you want to live or die.
what if it's not even before you die? Like, because obviously Qui-Gon, I don't know.
I definitely do think she was dead in that moment. Like that's kind of what my taking was, is that she was in the afterlife.
Right.
Um,
The Star
just
Wars afterlife.
yeah, again, just going back to like, but Ahsoka has died so many times.
Oh, I didn't know
No, sorry.
that.
For those of you following along at home, spoiler alert.
uh,
But yeah, I mean, so I guess to wrap this all up, what ranking would you give this?
if you would have asked me as I was watching the episode, as I was seeing all the Anakin stuff and the clone trooper stuff, I would have said 11 out of 10. Like, it was so freaking fantastic. And from somebody who didn't feel like they needed to really redo the prequels, like you said, as far as CGI goes and everything, which I was playing Battlefront 2, the old original one today, actually. And my God, the graphics terrible. But yeah, I was like, this was awesome. It was so cool to see, because that's probably one of my favorite periods of the Star Wars universe, was the CIS versus the Galactic Republic. So I love seeing that, and I was like, this is so fantastic. Like, you even text me halfway through and you're like, this freaking episode is amazing. And I was like, yes, it is. But afterwards, I feel like it goes down to like a 9 out of 10 for
Oh,
me,
okay, okay.
because like I said, I just feel like I have more questions
Mm-hmm.
than I got answers. Like, it was how I felt last at the end of the episode last week. I was so excited to see what this whole Anakin thing was, but now I'm just like, what was the point of that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do we see all this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
What about you?
I think I'm sticking with my 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
This video or this episode was filled with fan service, and I
Yeah.
welcome it.
Maybe that's all it was.
100% welcome it.
Yeah. Maybe that's all it was. It was cool to
Yeah.
see.
And I think literally the thing that could have only made this better was watching it in a theater with other Star Wars fans. Like 100%, this was the episode to do it. Like I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it was cool to see, but what was the point? Like, I
Yeah.
would feel even more frustrated watching in theater. It would have been cool seeing it, but then afterwards I would have been like, well, what the heck was the point? Are we going to see it again?
No,
Are
because
we
then
going to see
somebody would have
Anakin
stood up in
again?
the front and been like, "Well, actually, let me tell you the significance of Anakin's
when
lightsaber being red
but
and his
sounding
eyes turning orange, because Yoda actually says, the last Jedi you will be, and nobody else has passed the trials." That's what all of you sound like in our TikToks.
yikes. Yeah, he's
I
not
love you
upset
all.
about it. He's
I
not
love you
upset
all.
about it.
Keep watching, commenting, liking, and
Yeah,
subscribing. I
like,
love you
comment,
all.
subscribe. All right, man. All right. Well, we got our rankings. It was a great episode. I'm excited to see these last 3 episodes. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm truly just in suspense at this point and figuring out what the heck's next, you know?
Oh yeah. Only one thing is for sure about the next episode.
What's that?
Ahsoka will be in it.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
If not, we get a space mommy, so
What
it's
if
a
it,
win.
yeah, I was gonna say yes.
Yeah.
Chopper.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I love talking about this with you. I love diving into it. And to everybody else, thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, share it with your grandma. And until next week, may the force be with you.